everybody. We're talking baseball. Yeah, I got to go out there and wake up with my rotten singing because we all know it's bad because we're talking baseball. Doesn't matter the fact that I'm having a little Mountain Dew and I'm a little hungover up the Detroit Tigers losing to Seattle Mariners. Don't feel bad, Tigers fans. You gave it a great run. We'll talk about it more on Monday night on our Monday night 108 Stitches Baseball Show. Glad to have the band back. Mickey Callaway, my co-host of the show. Glad to have you back, Scap.
Yep, thanks for having me, guys. Good morning, everyone, and hopefully we'll have a great show for you today.
No, I don't use the word hopefully. Scratch that from your vocabulary. We do have a great show. Hopefully to me is a negative. Definitely is a positive. That's your first lesson today, Mickey. I don't believe in bad shows. I work too hard to put these things in, and let me tell you, my friend, there's no hope. There's definitely, with the group I have, I better have a good show or I need to retire.
I'm just used to the New York media. You can't be too positive there. They'll get on
you.
This
is New York media, brother. It's national media. Change your thinking. If you don't, I guarantee you I will. But I love your attitude towards the New York media. I'll write that down. Trent Clark is welcome. Is back there as well. New York media. Interesting stuff, Nick. That had the Clarks.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody. Thrilled for another show. Let's do this. A lot of baseball, man.
And we got Catsy.
Yeah, good to be back.
All right, rapid fire tonight. Shohei Ohtani, Paul Molitor. Candy will be on a little bit later. We'll talk Kevin Cash, and then we're going to get you set up for the baseball playoffs as well. Monday night show will be a lot more information. Today, we're just going to narrow in on some things as well. All right, let's get it rolling here with Shohei Ohtani. Dave Roberts at the beginning was conservative with him. He allowed Shohei Ohtani to go 5 innings. He struck out 9. And got his first Dodger win on his bobblehead night. What do you think about that, Mick? The guy gets his first win on a bobblehead night. Not the worst thing in the world, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, obviously on the night you have your bobblehead, you want to have a successful night. But, Shohei has tons of successful nights almost nightly throughout the season. And now the postseason, he's just a wonderful player. You love anytime he can get on the mound or he's up at the plate, it makes for exciting TV or exciting, baseball when you're in the stadium. So, Shohei is just he's our modern day Babe Ruth. And, I love anytime he has any success, and he's a great guy.
Right.
Yeah, man. I mean, no one's surprised by his success, right? Like, it's just, in fact, we've just come to expect it because we know this guy is like the delivery of consistency. And so, it's a great thing to see. And I think it's a little bit, the modern day Babe Ruth. I love that, how Mickey describes it. I think that's perfectly fit for Shohei. And then I think the other side of this is just, it's really neat for the country of Japan. Another iconic player after Ichiro, another guy who you just can't take your eyes off because, Mickey and I have been in these stadiums where the iconic player steps to the mound for a close. I was there in Cleveland days with Albert Bell and his 50-50 year. Mm-hmm. And you watch the whole stadium fill up in all the little concourses because everyone goes, you know what, I'll get out of the beer line because I got to see what Shohei is going to do. And everyone just fills the concourse. It's a really cool thing to see if you're just sitting there being an observer.
Eric.
I mean, we're the media has gotten to the point where it's they're at adjective to describe Shohei Ohtani because he's that good. I mean, he's clearly the most popular man in Japan because from what I hear in Tokyo, he's literally everywhere. Ads of him and pictures of him, just stuff you can buy of him. He's literally everywhere. It's got to the point now where you can't even turn on the TV without seeing him. He's on your bobblehead day, you want to give the crowd its money's worth. So, but Ohtani being successful that night, it doesn't surprise me at this point. What hasn't he done in baseball?
I'll just make an announcement right now while I have an opportunity to do that. Talking baseball will be moving to a new time beginning next week at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. We want to do that in case you have a lot of people that are sleeping in a little bit late. In addition to the fact that Mickey Callaway has West Coast connections, I want to move it up a little bit. The only time that will change is if I have a Miami Hurricanes game early. It will go back to 9, but beginning next week. So hope to tune in to us at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Time frame will be better for everybody across the board. so we can get to more and more people. 9's great, 10:30 is better. Please put that on your calendar going forward. We'll stay with the Ohtani theme, shall we? He threw 5 hitless innings in that game, and also hit his 50th home run to become the first player in history with a season of 50 home runs, 50 pitching strikeouts. The Phillies did defeat the Dodgers over 9-6, but think about this: Ohtani has consecutive 50 homer seasons. So that's not. You guys are making a modern reference of Babe Ruth. Don't worry, we're going to mention a little bit more about Babe Ruth in the program. But let's talk about the fact that this guy can hit, he can pitch, and he's one of the reasons why Clayton Kershaw's in the bullpen.
Yeah, he's the ultimate athlete. He's capable of doing it all. But you can put him in an NBA game, he'll go over there and dunk on somebody. That's the way this guy is. It's just he's going to succeed at whatever he's trying to do athletically. And when you have a player like that, it's such a special time and a special person to get to watch baseball, right? I mean, we're so lucky that we get to witness, Shohei Ohtani and all of his greatness and the way he's able to do things. And then on his personal side, just being able to maintain all of that, the ability to throw strikes and get his breaking ball where he needs to do, cover the plate when he's batting the way he can, and keep his swing maintained. It's a lot of work daily, and he has it down to a science. He works on his nutrition. There's no stone unturned when it comes to Shohei Ohtani. I think we've talked about this in the past. He's kind of a bit like Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. Mm-hmm. He's clicking on all cylinders. He's doing all the latest and greatest stuff that you can do to make yourself a better athlete. And he works his tail off. And that's something to really look up to. I think this is also a star that is wonderful for the world to look up to. He's such a great man. The way he goes about his business, he's not showy. He's the ultimate baseball player, and you got to love the way he approaches the game.
Hey, Katie, by the end of these show, I want you to let everybody know before we go off air, that the audience know as we get ready to wrap up with Mickey's that we'll be moving to 10:30. So in case they missed it early, they'll be able to get it later. All right. Hello, Andy, we appreciate you being on here from Facebook. Great stuff. That'll give us Andy's another reason why I'll move the time up so I can get it on all the 4 of our major ones. So we'll put that announcement about the time change as well. Great references. No skip about Rocky IV and nutrition, and that's why this guy's a beast. All right, Trent.
Yeah, Andy, thanks for being here. Love it. For Shohei, I mean, it almost reminds me like Little League, man. This guy's like putting Little League numbers up against the best in the world. And we have these kind of cool, iconic players right now in professional sports, because I would put like a Connor McDavid in this category right now of stuff that we just haven't seen done like on the ice. And you're like, when this guy makes plays, McDavid, like you're like looking at him like, wait a minute, this isn't a high school game. He's doing this against the best in the world. And that's how I always feel like with Shohei, you look at the numbers and you're like going, I mean, what is this? What is this? Like a small college year? Like this guy's putting up numbers against players that are the best in the world at what they do, and he's making it look easy. And I think it is really cool. Mickey makes a great point. It is really cool that if you get an iconic player like that hey, he's a high quality person, and I think that's a big deal.
Eric,
I mean, there are some players in this world, no matter the sport, they just come along. They just happen. I mean, there's no explanation for it. They're just one of those people that just has a superior athletic ability compared to everyone else. But Ohtani's managed to be more superior than just about everybody in baseball. I mean, the guy's literally successful at both hitting and pitching, 2 of the most important things in baseball. Something that's never been done before. Sure, back in the day, we saw pitchers every now and then crack a home run every so often, and it was great. But Ohtani's doing it nightly. I mean, this is not just a one-off thing. It's a frequent occurrence, and he's clearly he's shown that he is like truly the best in the world.
Okay. Trent.
Yeah, I got you on this, man. He is he may be a once in a lifetime kind of guy.
Eric?
I mean, we I already shared.
I'll continue the theme here. So get this, Shohei Ohtani. You talk about his velocity. Let's talk about it. At one point during the season in September, he had a pitch that went 101.5 miles an hour, and he recorded 11 pitches over 100 miles per hour, the most he's ever had in a start. So let's just turn this guy into a 101 mile an hour pitcher, let alone the fact that he can swing a hot bat, Skip.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to throw, a pitch 100 is something that's truly incredible. I remember, I think it was, if I had to guess, maybe about 10 years ago, you really started guys, seeing guys hitting 100 multiple times. I think just before that, it was like if somebody touched 100 here and there, like once, every 5 or 6 outings, you're like, oh my gosh, he hit 100. And then steadily, more and more guys are throwing pitches, multiple pitches per inning, multiple pitches per game, 100+ miles per hour. It seems like there's no limit in sight at this moment, but certainly it's got a plateau because the human body can only do so much. But Shohei definitely knows how to use his body to swing the bat and to throw the ball. I mean, his mechanics and his swing, the way he uses his core and his trunk and his legs in pitching is just it's phenomenal. You look at Aroldis Chapman and guys like that, those 6'5", 6'6" guys, Jacob deGrom, that really get that hip to shoulder separation in their swing and then their pitching mechanics, and they are able to generate such great power going towards home plate that when you're their manager, it kind of scares you a little bit, the way they throw the ball and the way it comes out. So he's just a superior athlete that knows how to use every part of his body to get the best results. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, obviously I'm a physiology guy, right? So I love watching guys who know how to use their body at that level. And when you look at it, it's a lever system, right? Everything's worked off levers. This is the challenge of, not being 6'5", right, Nick? It's like, yeah, exactly. Hey man, how he's not working out as hard as I am. How's he throwing 4 miles an hour? How do they get it? So, but it is a factor of the biomechanics of his playability. And he has to do to the point of the workload. He has to be working at this all the time. And it's not just, hey, I got to go to the cage and work on my swing and work on my timing off the tee, because the timing is pristine. And everything that he's doing to get everything moving all in the same direction at exactly the same time. You watch his hits, his strike zone, every time he hits in the hit zone, he's right there at his contact point. And it's crazy, the alignment and everything he's got going right at the right time. It's never like you saw guys last night, how important those pitching in the pitching game last night with Seattle and Detroit. Everyone's off balance. You're not getting people that are getting big swings on people, right? Carpenter gets one swing the whole game that you saw was really dead on. Everybody else is kind of leaning in, change up. I'm way off my front foot. This guy, watch his alignment. When he hits the ball, his contact point is stupid. And then you look at his release point on all his pitches, and Mickey will look at the biomechanics, and he's dead on all the time. And I tell you, it reminds me of the great PGA golfers, right? Who they have that strike point, and they've worked at that biomechanics so well that every time it's done just religiously, right on point. And listen, the repeatability, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Well, yeah, and I think if I can interject here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think something that's very important to think about when you're talking about Shohei and his mechanics of his swing and the mechanics of his pitching is that he pitches right-handed and he hits left-handed. So he's kind of training both the strong side and the weak side. So he doesn't even have a weak side. Yeah. It's something that Japanese players do. You'll see them throw a bullpen right-handed, and they'll go mimic throwing a bullpen left-handed just to make sure that their bodies are even. I think all the hitting and all the pitching for Shohei really keeps his body in sync, and he's able to use his core, going both directions, which is amazing. to be able to use that lower half in that way, and probably very difficult at first until you really get it. And now it's got to be a huge advantage for him to be able to stay healthy and train the right way and to really balance out any kind of, overdevelopment of one side in his case.
All the great players, right, Scott? All the great players, right-handed, bat left, Ichiro, Trent Clark, all of them, right?
Yeah.
all of them throw right, bat left. That's how you balance that out.
Well, the biggest thing here is what you're talking about, Skip, is baseball IQ backs up what you're talking about being go left and right. I mean, this guy's baseball IQ is better than anybody I've ever seen, and let alone the fact you think Babe Ruth, and we're going to talk about him, as I mentioned earlier, later in the program, there's no way Babe Ruth is hitting 100 miles an hour. No way. Unless Eric Katz can make a case that he will. Go ahead, Eric.
I mean, back in the day though, Babe faced significantly less pitchers. He faced in a season what Ohtani probably faces within within at least a month or two. But Ohtani is just, he's obsessed with the craft. He wants to be the best ever. That's where he puts all his hyper focus in there. I know that was the big thing when when the whole thing broke out about someone stealing money from him. They were talking about how Ohtani would leave kind of, which, I wouldn't advise that. I mean, you gotta focus on that part of your life too. But people talked about how Ohtani was hyper focused on baseball in season. That's part of the deal. And that's why, and he's reaping the benefits now of being truly the best in the game.
Okay, we'll continue the Ohtani theme. Hope people aren't getting bored with it, but this guy's great. He's great. And we'll continue for a little while until we incorporate some more people in there. Let's go back to the fact that back in August, as he was getting this thing going, he had a career season high 9 strikeouts in a 5-inning game. 9 strikeout, people, for this guy in 5 innings. Unheard of. 9 in 5 innings. Oh, of course, unless you're Terry Scuba, who, what do you have?
13
last night. That's another story. But yeah, and how many innings?
In six.
6. All right, Terry Scuba had 13 and 6, but again, Terry Scuba is a pitcher and he doesn't hit both ways. All right, Skip. Let's talk about Ohtani though. 5 innings, 9 Ks. Surreal.
Yeah, he has a great pitch mix, obviously, right? He's able to spin the ball very, very well. He generates the arm speed that's going to give him the maximum movement on his pitches. We talked about the 101 miles per hour, so his fastball's coming out very nice. Once you add that kind of arm speed to a changeup or a breaking ball, the spin on those pitches ends up being to the point where you're going to get the maximum movement you can. And that translates into strikeouts, right? And these premier strikeout guys that can almost strike out 2 per inning, it's amazing. We talked about 13 strikeouts in 6 innings by Skubal, 9 and 5 innings by Shohei. This is what Nolan Ryan did back in the day, right? He did it for 27 years, which is unbelievable. But Shohei does have wipeout stuff. And, anytime you can get these guys sitting on a 100-mile-per-hour fastball and have to worry about that, and then you can drop in, a slower breaking ball or a changeup or a split finger, those pitches just seem to dominate when you got these guys sped up for the fastball, because you have to sit on the fastball and adjust. And it's not easy to do that when these guys are making these pitches move the way they can with this arm speed that they can generate these days. So it's just fun to watch him. I mean, we talk about this, and I say that every time we talk about Shohei. He's fun to watch because this is why you're watching baseball these days, is to see guys like Shohei go out and dominate.
Trent?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't be surprised that Shohei Ohtani is over. He's becoming over Babe Ruth. First of all, it's a modern era, so the comparisons are tough to even factor in, and that's tough. But we know what Shohei Ohtani is putting in to be the guy, and we also now know what Babe Ruth wasn't putting in to be the guy, right? He's a guy, he's a fun-loving guy. Hey, great teammate. Not exactly Mr. Preparation. Let's just say that. So. And we've learned a lot more about protecting the body, guarding the body, knowing what's next, all those things. And you're also talking about an era where, most players worked in the off season, right? This wasn't this dedicated full-time thing that everybody had to do. So there's a lot of differences in the era, but I don't think there's any doubt why Shohei Ohtani is becoming this iconic, once in a lifetime kind of player that's going to be remembered that way. I just think he's doing the work. And I think it's all back to confidence, right? Like, it's a confidence game. Prep and reps equals confidence. This guy's highly prepared. His reps are every time are dead on. They are there. There's never, and Mickey can attest to this. Like, when you're there, you see great athletes who don't take their reps seriously. They're like half-assing stuff. And you're like going, oh my gosh, man, like, practice like it's game 7 all the time, because there's going to be a time where this is where it's called on you. And it's just like we go back to the military training. You go down to your lowest training, right? So all of a sudden, when things go, we call them finders in the playoffs. The player who's so unprepared, who's the least prepared on the field, it's amazing how that ball finds them, like, when it is. And I'm not saying this kid wasn't prepared, but we could point to that Philly Dodger end of the game. There had just been a meeting on the mound of what's about to happen, and everyone in their mind, and it's harder for pitchers, and I want to give that because he's focused on throwing the ball, hitting his spots. He's not focused on fielding. But every player on that field is always thinking, if the ball hits to me, what's expected of me? What do I need to do with it? What do I do in this situation? You're always prepared for that before it happens. And so I just think this guy's preparedness and repetition being so stellar, his confidence level's off the charts, and that's an issue for everybody else, because we're all gonna have to face that, and it's astounding. It's astounding.
Well, let me give you my 2 cents on Babe Ruth. Number one, okay, it's too early to mention this reference, but he was drinking beer, and we're in the morning, so I don't know if people are drinking beer. There might be a few.
Wait a minute, you're not right now? Wait a minute, what's going on?
No, I have gasoline called Diet Mountain Dew. But that doesn't affect my energy level this morning. I was pumped for this show, because anytime I get an opportunity to talk about Shohei Ohtani, it reminds me of the fact that when I talked to Don Mattingly when he was the manager of the Miami Marlins, and I saw that the numbers that we were getting off of Don Mattingly talking about Shohei Ohtani went up there. I learned a lot about this new business here. And Don Mattingly draws a lot on his own. You stick Shohei Ohtani into it, all of a sudden you got interest because you got 2 great players simultaneously. And another thing, Ruth didn't have to deal with is social media, which wouldn't have gone out there and talked about his extracurricular activities, as they may so candidly mention. So go ahead, Eric.
I was gonna say Babe Ruth wouldn't have done well in the social media era. I promise you. But
especially in New York.
Oh God, he would have, and Boston probably for that matter too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the thing about Ruth though is Ruth played at a time, though, besides people working, that the only time you really trained was during spring training. There was none of these modern advances like that we have now to train and things like that. There was also no Players Association at the time, so really it was the only people who got rich in the game were owners. And then Ruth obviously was considered one of the highest paid players of his time, though. But it was just a different era. The pitches were different. They you might have a fastball and possibly a curveball, and I don't know, maybe a changeup. That's it. So really, like, all pitchers were practically throwing the same stuff, and it was just that's just what it was at the time. And also, starters generally lasted longer, so you got to see him the 5th and the 6th time around, unless he was getting absolutely shelled that day. But the pitching staffs were significantly smaller than what they are now, but Ohtani's doing it in an era where, it's not hard to find a guy to throw 100. It's really not. These organizations seem to obsess over velocity at the expense of Tommy John medical bills. It's just, the impressive thing about it is Ohtani's doing very Babe Ruth-like stuff in an era where we thought we would never see it again. Granted, it hasn't been perfect because he's had some injuries and some surgeries he's had to do. Do I think he's going to be able to keep it up? No, because man, there's only so much the human body can take, even if you are Ohtani. But it's still impressive though, because we all thought Babe Ruth happened once and would only happen once, but now I think we're experiencing kind of a second coming of it.
8 points. Okay, let's continue on. So get this, after 10 starts, okay, with Ohtani, Shohei Ohtani's ERA at the time was 4.61 and 27.1 innings. In a game against Colorado, though, they roughed him up for 9 hits, 5 earned runs, 4 innings pitched, taking his first loss of the year as Colorado beat the Dodgers 8-3. Hello, everybody. This guy is human. He's playing the Colorado Rockies. Guess what? Coors Field. That'll make that Jim Leland was a one and done in Colorado. Shohei, that's okay. You're human. Listen, Skip, you were in Colorado. That's not an easy place to play, is it?
No. Every time you have to go into Coors Field, you are dreading it. It's one of those. You look at the schedule 2 months ahead of time. You're like, oh no, I better get my ERA down, way down before I go pitch in Colorado. And you literally, for 2 weeks before, you have guys, hey, maybe I need an extra day or two, and they're trying to like skip out on that Colorado series because they can see the way it's lining up, and they're one of the 3 that have to go pitch in that series. It's just we've talked about it before. The place needs to go. It really has a mental effect on pitchers, and it has a physical effect, with all the, you come back after your outing there or after you play a 3-game set there and you're super sore because you're not getting the oxygen that it takes to rebuild your muscles and repair them. So it's torturous to go into Coors Field, and you're going to give up runs. We know this. I think I've seen a ton of pitchers go in there, have respectable ERAs, leave with an ERA that's a run more, and then you got to go get it back down. But most teams have to do it, and that's part of the game. It's part of going to Colorado, and it's not fun, but a lot of guys got to do it. Shohei's not the only one that's struggled over there for sure. But if you're going to struggle anywhere, your pitches don't break as much. Your pitches just do different things in that thin air. So getting there and trying to prepare for it is really tough, and you just don't know what's going to happen when the ball comes out of your hand.
Just be glad you play in the American League. You only have to go there every once in a while.
Exactly.
All right, let's turn it over to Trent. You got that smile that's lighting up, man.
I'm the opposite effect, man. I'm like 3 days in Colorado. Let's make it 4. I want runs scored. I want a ball. Even little Trent Clark might pop one over the fence at that altitude. Like there's all sorts of good things that could happen in Colorado for me. So I think from the little man syndrome and all your front of the back end of the lineup, they're pretty excited about going to Colorado. The physiology fact is a real factor. Like Mickey brings a great point. Lactic acid is starting very early, and the pitchers, they're going less. I'm trying to get them off the mound and try to build that lactic acid out. We're trying to get them on the bike and flush it, and they are affected. And so, that series after, I'd love to look at those numbers sometimes of the series after a trip into Colorado and how the pitching does, because the recovery will not be the same. No one's accustomed to it. There's no other fields that are running anywhere near that high. So it's significant when you're up there. Mm-hmm. And when you're in an aerobic position, and even it's mostly anaerobic, but as a pitcher, you're constantly moving, and then you got these intervals of this aerobic activity. And so it is a factor because that oxygen. So the recovery becomes a big deal. And so I'd love to see that. That'd be really intriguing, Mick, to go in and go, hey, how'd our staff do? How'd the 3 guys do the through on their next outing after Colorado? Because it will be a factor.
Well, let's say it's a reality. You got baseball Hall of Famers that came out of there. Todd Helton, Larry Walker, Andres Colorado. There's no.
Yeah, what pitchers? What pitchers?
They're hitters. That's a different conversation. This is really seriously, really aiming at you. Really, seriously, really. Mike Hampton went there for God's sake because of his offense, not like he was going to be in the Hall of Fame. How long did it take for them to get a no-hitter there? I think they have at least one.
Hideo Nomo.
I don't know who it went against.
Is there a no-hitter in Colorado?
Yeah, there is. Hideo Nomo.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I knew I got it. Good. That's a great transition, you Cassie. I'm proud of you. I won't tell you to shut up. I'll just keep it. I'll just say keep it up.
Well, Scott. Scott. Coors Field's heaven on earth for hitters. So it was no wonder everyone was putting up big numbers there because you could literally bust your bat wide open and it might be a home run. In otherwise in places like, say, Citi Field, for example, it's probably going to be a routine out, whether via fly ball at best or a ground out. But here's the thing, though: who hasn't been roughed up at Coors Field? You know it's hard to pitch there. There's a reason nobody wants to go to Colorado. And Mike Hampton was a salary dump because Colorado was pitching desperate at the time. That's why he went over there. Sure, he hit well, but Colorado brought him there to pitch. I mean, anybody can literally hit at Coors Field because of the thin air there. And also, as great as it is as hitting there, people don't talk about playing outfield there, given how big the track is. You get winded there. I mean, you come out of the game after it's all said and done, you're gassed because the air is just so much more thinner out there. That's something that people do not talk enough about, is playing outfield at Coors Field, which is very, very difficult. But Ohtani getting roughed up there, no surprise. It happens to the best of them. It's not a fun place to pitch. There's a reason nobody wants to go to Colorado and pitch. And the only guy who's really done it in recent years, who's done well, it had some success, is Ubaldo Jimenez in recent years, which that was like quite a few years ago, where he was just somehow mastered the thin air and had a really, really good year. I think it was the last time Colorado went to the playoffs and had Rocktober in Denver. But here's the thing, don't talk to me about Larry Walker and Todd Helton. Great players, but they're hitters. Anybody can put up big numbers there.
I can talk to them. They're in the Hall of Fame. A minute.
Well, Scott, you forget they're hitters.
So what? You got the Hall of Fame. Colorado can't say they don't have Hall of Famers.
It's thin air, Scott. Anybody can put up big numbers there. If you have a pitcher that gets to the Hall of Fame primarily playing for the Rockies, you come call me.
Okay. No
hey, we can all.
So let me ask you, Cassie. Did you say Hideo
Nomo?
Hideo Nomo. Okay, was the only one who pitched a no-no. Okay. All right,
Yep.
All right.
Can we agree? Can we agree the best athletes in the world are in baseball? Can we agree to that?
Yes.
I mean, Todd Helton, a Division I quarterback in Tennessee. Like, how many athletes? I think Glavine could have played in the NHL. Erstad could have played in the NHL and the NFL. I mean, like, you talk about these athletes, and like, they choose baseball because it's probably the less taxing on their body. They can make more. They get out of the violence. But like, these athletes could play a lot of sports. I think back when I was in Cleveland back in 95, 96, we probably had a basketball team that could beat the Cavaliers at that point. Like, we had some kids that were absolutely like crazy at that level, and they were all good baseball players, man.
They were.
I mean, well, let me say this about Colorado. They treated me great in spring training when I snapped up DJ LeMahieu and Chris Russin. Their PR department went over backwards to take care of me. Yeah. And guess what, though? I got off easy. They were playing in Arizona in the Cactus League, so that was different. All right, let's continue the theme as we continue rapid fire. Candy Embley will be on shortly. We have a cutoff time of about 25 minutes. Want to keep the momentum rolling, but I knew this was going to be one of the hottest topics that we had on the network. That's why I incorporated it middle of the show. In August, at the time, the Dodgers kept their options open for putting Ohtani in the bullpen, which would have been the first time that would have ever happened. Mickey, are you glad that they abandoned those plans?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they still have those plans in the back of their mind as this postseason goes on. I know there's been some talk of trying to do that full-time next year. I think Shohei's actually stated that he would be open to it. There's some significant challenges to navigating that, with him being in the lineup and hitting, and then trying to get him loose and get him in at the right time. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Shohei Ohtani pitch at least 1 or 2 innings out of the bullpen during this postseason. It's just a huge weapon that they will have at their disposal. He'll probably try to pitch game 1 of the league championship series. And hopefully if they do well enough and they make it to the World Series, it'll be the same case. And I think that you might see him in the bullpen towards the back of both of these series if they continue to advance.
Trent?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got the best player in the world. Like, you're going to use him. And God bless, like, Mickey being in that position. Like, actually, I think it's a blessing, Mickey, but, like, you've got to be thinking, like, how can I use this guy all the time? And where can I use him? Like, he is Superman. At some point, I think I'm going to see him pitch the ball and catch it in the same pitch. Yeah. So, like, this guy's that good right now, right? So, like, who knows? But, we saw it last night, obviously in a 15-inning game. We saw, 3 starters on both teams come out of the pen last night. So, like, it's It's crazy, man. You got to do what you got to do when it comes playoff time. Like you get in, and then all good plans, man. Like this is like getting laughed at by God. Tell them your plans for this game plan, and then everything's foobar by the 7th inning, right? And so you're like, man, now where are we at? And you got to plan for it, and it's rough, but I think we'll definitely see him out of the pen before this playoffs are over.
Eric,
I mean, it wouldn't. I don't think the Dodgers have abandoned the plans per se, because it's like we saw it last night where Logan Gilbert, who's one of the better starting pitchers in the league, was pitching out of the bullpen. So I don't think the Dodgers have necessarily gotten rid of it, but I just think that they're not going to pull the trigger on it unless they truly have to. But in the postseason, no one's immune from the bullpen. No one is immune from it. You gotta. You need all hands on deck in the postseason, especially pitching, because it is like all your chips are in the middle of the table, to use a poker analogy. And you got to do what you got to do. I mean, so I don't think the plans are abandoned. So I don't think we can be glad that they're just not using them right now. Sure, it's great that they're not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I mean, we saw it last night, and if someone like Logan Gilbert, who is a borderline Cy Young candidate, can pitch out of the bullpen, I think Ohtani can as well. And Ohtani's clearly cool with it. I mean, he would say otherwise. I mean, Ohtani's the ultimate team guy too, which is great. But I've read all about that, and so I don't think the Dodgers have abandoned it. I just think that they're just not going to it right this second. But when they again in the NLCS with whoever they play, which will be determined today between the Brewers and the Cubs, don't be surprised if they pull that trigger. But they're just it's not abandoned. They're just not firing the gun right now.
Okay, so let me continue on. One of the reasons that Dave Roberts is a great manager is he projected at the time that Ohtani would go about 5 to 6 innings, and obviously load management factored into it. So as I go out there and talk about that, keep in mind that Ohtani earned his first postseason start, and in that game, he goes 6 innings, has 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, and 9 Ks. So load management, combine that set with what he did in the postseason, and the fact that the manager projected 5 to 6 innings, that's a lot to bite off, Skip. That to me is brilliant.
Yeah. You have to understand what your players can do and what you have coming in behind them to try and protect a lead. And I think that nowadays it's just going into the game, managers are thinking 5, 6 max, right? And I think that's what most managers, for obvious reasons, are thinking that with every starter they have, and they're hoping that their starting pitcher can really show them something to be able to justify leaving them out a little bit longer. I think there's a lot of pressure on managers, and they're always going to err on the side of taking guys out early instead of leaving them in too long, right? That's just the way the front office is and the way this game has started going, right? Because you understand that the relievers can there's this thought process, and the numbers kind of back this up, that really almost no matter who you bring in from your bullpen, if the starter is going to face a batter for the 3rd time, that it's better to bring in a reliever.
Right.
That's just simply stated what the numbers show, what the front offices are thinking, and then they put this information into the manager's brain, and the managers become a little bit, less, willing to leave starters out of there because of that tidbit of information. And that's why pitchers aren't going as deep into games, because the information says this one thing, and we're so reliant on information these days. you want more than anything for your guy to be out there like Scooble, striking out 13 guys through 6 innings so you can leave, so you can send them back out there for the 7th inning, because every manager in baseball wants their starter to eat as many innings as possible, right? So you need your player needs to go out there and prove to you that he earns that 6th inning, that 7th inning, that 8th inning. And that's tough to do when you have guys throwing 100 in the back of your bullpen that you can bring in and you feel good about. So, I think that's really the reason that you can sit there before, even with a guy like Shohei Ohtani, who's as dominant as he is, and say, oh, I just want 5 or 6 good innings out of him, right? Back in the day, it would be, oh, Shohei Ohtani's pitching. Oh, Tom Seaver's pitching. I expect him to go 9, and if we have to bring somebody else in, you're disappointed. It's just that there's just the way the game has changed these days.
Yeah, I think that's what, if AJ Hinch had his way, Scooble would have had a complete game. Great point.
Absolutely.
But
no
he
doubt.
would. But 99 pitches, he knew his pitcher was out of gas. That's just the way this game is. And I understand AJ's logic. And of course, we saw what happened. He went 15, but 9 would have been good. The Tigers would have won. Great effort by him. We'll talk more about him on Monday night. But you're 100% on point. You comparing Tom Seaver and Tarek Scooble, you can't even do it, let alone Ohtani. Nobody goes complete games anymore. Trent, a few more topics. We'll try to get you in as many as we can, but what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think Dave Roberts, I think what great managers do, both in business and sport, right? They communicate really well, and then they expect execution. And I think, if Mickey and I are in a conversation, he's my pitcher, we don't work on expectation, we work on agreement. And that means simply like that Mickey and I are talking about his outing right now ahead of it. And he's looking at this thing and I'm like, hey, listen, I don't want to say, hey, I expect 8 innings from you. Mickey, tell me what you're capable of. And he's like, hey, man, listen, I think I've got 7 innings in me tonight. This is where I'm at. Now, listen, if he's in 4 innings at 38 pitches, we're communicating in between the innings going, hey, listen, Skip, I think I could probably go 8. If this continues, I'm fine here. Let's communicate in between this thing because the game's changing. It's adapting as we go. If he's getting first pitch outs all over the place, we're getting short innings. And so there's a lot of things going on there. But the communication, I think, of Dave Roberts is, I think, what separates him as a manager, because it's wrong for me to expect what my expectations are. And if we leave it to 25 men and a staff of 7 men all going, what my expectation is for that? Guess what? That's 32 different expectations, because no one's got the same expectation. And we got to have an agreement, just like we have an agreement. We all do a show at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, and we're all here ready to go and we have an agreement on that. If we said, hey, let's do a show sometime, well, what's the expectation on that? Well, when will we get together? Is there a calendar? We're all thinking different things. This is where managers separate themselves out, is they separate like, hey, let's work off agreement, not off expectation. We're communicating on that. And if we get an agreement that is 80 pitches, that could be 5 innings and that could be 8 innings. It just depends how that game's going. And we're all communicating that, and we're communicating as that goes too.
Eric?
I think nowadays, managers and pitchers, it's a lot more collaboration than what it used to be. I mean, say what you will about the why or the reason for it, player empowerment, blah blah blah. But I think that I think Dave Roberts, we don't talk about it enough about how he's got a good pulse. He's got a good idea what the pulse of that clubhouse is. I think that's ultimately where managers fail, is they fail to understand. And I'd probably say people in the workplace too, they kind of fail to know what the pulse of the office or the locker room is. And that's where, bad things happen, where locker rooms are lost and managers in the unemployment line. But I think that, in terms of, I think there's game plan that goes on now. I'm sure like before the game, that Dave Roberts is probably talking to Ohtani in advance on what he's capable of, how he's feeling, because there's such a thing called unannounced injuries. They won't show up on the injury report, but someone's arm could be barking like a dog, but it won't necessarily appear on the injured list. So sometimes when you see these pitchers have like a short start to like say 4 innings or so, sometimes that's done strategically. I mean, the fans won't see it because there's a lot that goes on that they don't see and don't hear about. is, it's because maybe his arm's bothering him. The last thing you want to do is have the guy over pitch, and next thing you know, you lose him for a longer period of time where you don't have him. So I think a lot more nowadays, it's a lot more collaborative between the players and the manager now, where they can tell you how they're feeling and what they think they're capable of. I mean, granted, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. I mean, clearly this year we saw it with Rafael Devers doing it the wrong way, but of course that's another issue. There was a bunch of issues on the other side as well. So the Red Sox aren't completely immune from that. But I think it's a lot more collaborative now. I'm sure Dave Roberts does collaborate with Ohtani. I'm sure he does it with his whole pitching staff. So I think that's what separates them is, in order to win, it's a lot more of a collaborative effort. And that's why I think the Dodgers truly are one of the best organizations in baseball.
All right, let's talk about Ohtani, the hitter, and we'll do that. Back in 2021, Shohei Ohtani breaks the single-season home run record for Japanese-born players, set by Hideki Matsui of the New York Yankees. Boy, you talk about Japanese players. Hideki Matsui is as good as they get. And I hear he recently threw out the first pitch over the Yankees game. Yeah. Skip, some thoughts about Hideki. Man, this guy was unbelievable. I think he's one of the best Japanese players. We talked about Ichiro Suzuki and Ohtani. Let's not forget Hideki Matsui. This guy was a big part of the Yankees organization. And I'll talk about what Joe Torre said about the Yankees at a later day. I want to keep the focus on Matsui. In addition to Ohtani breaking that record, let's keep the focus on both those two players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, when I think about Japanese-born players that come over and have, success in the major leagues, I think of Hideki Matsui and I think of Arabu as a pitcher. So we got the hitter and the pitcher. Those were kind of the first two that really stuck out in my mind. And I love watching Hideki play. I really liked his short, quick swing to the ball. His swing mechanics were off the charts. He had that good big lower half trunk to be able to drive the ball out of the park, especially in Yankee Stadium, right, Eric? We know, a little leaguer can hit it out of right field there because it's such a little, I mean, come on.
That's just the porch. You forget the fly balls die in center and left field.
They do, but luckily we got these big lefties in there that can just
don't throw it on the inside, Nick. Don't throw it on the
exactly.
inside.
But I think Hideki was such a great player for them. And another thing that stood out with Hideki is he was humble. He played the game the right way. He didn't show anybody up. The Japanese players are so respectful in that regard, and they're such good human beings. They have a very, very sense of just respect for the game of baseball, and they kind of understand that, hey, I need to respect the game and it'll respect me back. And he was just such a great hitter, and I really, really, really didn't love coaching against him because he was hard to pitch to, but I definitely liked watching him play.
Clarky?
Yeah, another player. He came over a little later in his career. He was already the iconic player of all time in Japan, right? Before he even came at 30. I think he was 30 at least by the time he came to the U.S. And maybe Candy can check that. But I felt like he was older. And, he was a huge fish in listen, a big pond. Japan baseball is big. It's not the major leagues. It's not the national scale. And I get that. But it's a big deal there. It's everything. And so coming here, I mean, I think it's a tribute to their culture of respect. He came in very humbled. Hey, I'm going to play with the best in the world. Competed very well, obviously. And that record obviously stood a long time here till Ohtani's beat that. So it's pretty impressive. Big fan of Matsui, and I was very interested to see how he would manage at this level. He was really the first really home run hitter out of Japan to be like, hey, is this guy going to be a power guy here? There'd been a lot of minor leaguers who had gone over and had big power numbers in Japan. So it was interesting to see how he would do, and he put up great numbers. So it was impressive. I want to make one more point though. Can I come back to Dave Roberts for a second? Because I wanted to make a point about that, where this is an underestimated value of a manager. 40 players, and I'll use Mickey Callaway as an example. You know, when we're coaching Mickey Callaway, he has a relationship with me as a strength coach, his trainer, his pitching coach, his manager, all his 24 other teammates that revolve all the time, because you got like 8 to 10 players that revolve regularly. And so like a manager is managing 780 relationships inside that clubhouse between staff and players.
Wow.
780.
Point.
Like, I mean, like, and you know, Mick, we have personal conflicts, right? People are like, I don't like the music you play on the weight room.
Right.
It's like, dude, like, we're working out, man. Like, just get your shit done, you know? And when it happens, like the conflict can arise, and then it stirs, and the manager has to go deal with that. And he's like, man, I want to deal with the opponent and what we got to do, not with what stereo we're playing in the weight room, but like, it's real. You have to deal with these things, and where we're sitting on the plane, and where, like, it's like school children sometimes, man. We're human, right? And so, but don't underestimate when you're a manager, and when Eric Katz says, man, he's so good at navigating where everybody's at in that relationship. Hey, that's 780 relationships that he's navigating all the time. And it's real, man. And this is the challenge of having someone in your clubhouse who can't manage relationships, because one guy could go break up 39 other relationships, and that causes all sorts of rift and challenges. And this is why bad folks spread like cancer. And this is a challenge of a clubhouse. I think Dave Roberts is doing it better than anybody.
Okay, Canty, we have one more Shohei Ohtani topic I want to get to, and we have a few things. We're going to go to a station break. Also, in case you're just joining us, our Talking Baseball will move to 10:30 a.m. beginning next Saturday morning. Candy Ebling will be on for a station break in a moment. Trent, we have a couple more topics we're going to get you involved in. We'll let you get off close to 10 a.m. if we can. Depends on how long you want to, whatever ones you don't hit, you won't hit. But you're hitting the major ones. That's all I can say. All right, go ahead, Eric. And then we have one more Ohtani, and we have a few other people we want to talk about, like Paul Molitor as well. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, you know, I was going to say too, you know, we're forgetting here that the manager has to manage off the field as well, because, you know, because of everything that can go wrong there. You know, imagine trying to manage Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden during a certain period of time. You know, I can't, or Albert or Bobby Bonilla for that matter. That job can't be easy. Or Trent in your day, Mo Vaughn. But you know, it's, you know, Hideki Matsui though, you know, God, he was great for New York. Absolutely great. You know, he was durable for the most part. You know, you could always depend on him to play. He had my lasting memory of him was a World Series performance for the ages, where he shattered every single offensive record that you could possibly have almost during that time, and helped the Yankees beat the Philadelphia Phillies, who were bidding to become the first back-to-back champion, something that the Dodgers have a chance to do this season. But Matsui, you know, he was great. He was a legend in Japan. He was essentially what Ohtani is now. Obviously a different player because Matsui was an outfielder, but he was a legend over in Japan. Came into New York and was worth the hype. I mean, my hat's off to him. He was humble. He helped the Yankees win their most recent World Series ring, and yeah, you can't say enough good things about him. I mean, obviously he's very much revered in New York. He comes back frequently, so clearly everything's good there.
Okay, last Ohtani topic I want to get to, and then we'll go. Well, you know what? We won't go to a station break with one more, being conscious of Trent's availability. We'll do it a little bit later as we get to Molly. You're going to have to, you know, at some point or another, Trent will talk about Molitor, but you won't be today because of your time constraints. So we'll go ahead, unless you can stretch it a little bit, you'll get a piece of the Molitor action. But Shohei Ohtani has made 100 career starts in the company of Nolan Ryan, Babe Ruth. You guys mentioned it. You can make this one brief if you want. Go ahead, Skip.
Can you hear me, Scott?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Skip, I'll go over it again. Shohei Ohtani has made 100 career starts and is in the company of Nolan Ryan, Babe Ruth. You can go as long as you want or as little as you want. We
Yeah.
make comparisons all day long with these two anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the strikeouts are obviously there. Babe Ruth, the going back and forth is just so impressive to be able to go both ways. But we know that the way he goes about his business is top notch. We've talked about that, and that leads to his ability to be able to be like Babe Ruth and Nolan Ryan, two of the best players that have ever played the game. The strikeouts are there, like in Ryan's case, because what we talked about earlier, the arm speed, the ability to make the ball move. You have to sit on that 100-mile-per-hour fastball and adjust. That's one of the toughest things to do in all of sports, is to hit a baseball, especially with the way these guys are throwing it. And then to be able to go out there and hit the baseball against guys that are throwing 100 miles per hour and always stay on time, like Trent alluded to earlier. He's always in a great position to hit no matter who he's facing. That's why he's so consistent. It's just an amazing feat for an athlete to be able to go do that. Two of the hardest things in all of sports, and he excels at both of them. It's pretty amazing.
All right, Trent.
Hey, listen, man, if you could be in the company of Nolan Ryan and Babe Ruth in anything, I don't care if your locker's next to them. I think it's awesome. Let alone the guy is actually doing it, right? He's doing it, but man, Shohei Ohtani's, again, probably. I love Katz's statement. People thought there'd never be another Babe Ruth. Well, he's proven that wrong.
Fair enough. Okay, Katzy.
I mean, incredible to be in the same sentence as Nolan Ryan and Babe Ruth. I mean, that's something that I previously didn't think was possible.
Yeah. Yes, please.
All right. Well, this topic here is for Mickey and Trent only. Okay. And that's this. The competitor we're going to talk about, Blake Snell, who said to Dave Roberts, leave me in. Okay. You talk about the competitor. We talked about this, Katsy. We talked about it Monday night. So we're going to leave it to these two guys to comment on it. Leave me in and scoreless 7 innings versus the Phillies. Not the case. So when we talked about Kevin Cash and the Tampa Bay Rays, back then, I'll tell you, the true word of competitor is when you have a guy like Blake Snell. Obviously, you're a pitching guy, Mickey. How can you not admire this guy, let alone the fact that this guy played for the San Diego Padres and has a chance to get a ring with the Dodgers? Mickey, the floor is yours.
Yeah, you have to love a guy that says, leave me in, right? And I would have to say 95% of the guys do that. I don't think I've ever taken a guy out of the game that wants to come out, but what you have to do is you have to know this player. You have to know what's going on that night, and you have to know if it's really genuine, right? I've seen players that say, "Oh, you should let," or get mad when they get taken out, but that's kind of their MO. They're kind of glad they did, right? It's kind of a double-edged sword when you're making this decision, especially when somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, leave me in." I think deep down inside, they want to always stay in, but there comes a time where even there is a little self-doubt. You have to really understand the facial expressions, the way they're how convicted they are, how are they actually pitching versus how do they interpret their pitching, because these are all things that a manager has to think about. A pitching coach is navigating throughout the game, right? My pitching coach is probably over there talking to him probably before his last inning of work to see how convicted he is and if he wants to go back out. I have been in that situation where Terry Francona said, "Hey, go check on him between innings. If he looks like he's in doubt at all, come let me know. We'll get him out of there." Right. I've sent my pitching coaches to do the same thing. So you really have to, kind of play that game of trying to figure out exactly what the kid's mind is like, because if you go out there in the middle of the game and it's the first mound visit and you ask a kid how you doing or whatever, and he's sitting there just beating the table to stay in the game, you're going to try and let him stay in the game because listen, us as coaches, we want the best for these players at all times. That's why we're doing it, right? And I got in trouble for saying this in New York and my thing. You have to love these guys, and you should love these guys. And that is like the worst thing to say in New York, but you have to love the players. And I think where it gets misinterpreted in New York is loving somebody is not letting them do whatever the hell they want. It's holding them accountable for everything they do. My girls, I love them with all my heart, but I have to make sure that they walk the straight and narrow line. That's my job. You don't just like, ooh, do whatever you want because I love you so much. I think that's how it gets interpreted, sometimes. And that's not it. If you don't love them, then you're not going to discipline them. Hey, go do whatever you want, right?
Right.
And this is how you have to deal with your players. You want them to succeed. You want them to get the chance to stay out there for one more inning when they ask it. But you also have to understand what's going on in the game, who's available behind them, and things like that. And you have to send your pitching coach over there to dig a little bit the inning before to make sure that everything's good. And you also got to understand who's coming up, right? How much success has this happened? Well, I had a situation in New York where Steven Matz was pitching really well. Where he's losing 2-1. We come up and we take the lead, and he's thrown 6 innings, and he's like at 86 pitches. Right. He just came up to bat in the last inning, so he's running around the bases. He got on base. He actually scored the go-ahead run, and then Josh Donaldson is leading off the next inning for the Atlanta Braves, and we take him out and we put Seth Lugo in. And, in my mind, it's the right decision. I wanted Matsy to stay out there. Matsy said he wanted to stay out there, but him versus Josh Donaldson's not a good matchup. Of course, Lugo goes out there and gives up 5 runs, which he never does. He was our best reliever at the time. But you have to understand everything that's in play to make the best decision. I know that's a long-winded answer, but it takes a lot of information to make those decisions. And, in Kevin Cash's case, when he took him out early, it seemed that's what they had been doing throughout the season. Right. And then they just carried it into the postseason. It seems like Dave Roberts, really believed in what Blake Snell was saying at the time, and it benefited him. And I think there might come a time, even in this series, where he's going to say the same thing, and Dave might make a little bit of a different decision based on who's available behind him. And, if we have Shohei Ohtani in the bullpen in Game 5, Blake Snell's pitching, he might not get that extra inning. That's just how the game goes. Every situation, every game is different. Every decision's different. And there's 50 factors you have to take into account when you're making all of these decisions.
So here's what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to wait on our MLB baseball observations instead. And we'll do it on Saturday and maybe on Monday night, Mick, if we have time, in order to get Clarkie an opportunity to come in and Paul Molitor. Is that fair enough, Clark?
Perfect.
A couple more minutes will work. But give me your opinion about what the judgment called at Roberts. You heard what Mickey had to say. Yeah. You can build on that, and you can end it with Molitor, then you're done for the day, and then we'll take it the rest of the way. Go ahead. You have 2 shots. You got this topic, and then you talk about Molly, and you're done.
Okay. Real quick. There's nothing really quick about that. This is great. I mean, first of all, there's a lot of conditions we're expecting, right? As coaches, we're the objectors. We're holding ourselves objectively, and we do get subjective because we spent so much time with these guys. We've invested players. We do love the players. And part of that is tough love. That's what Mickey's describing. As a strength coach, I'm a tough love guy, man. You are getting in, doing the work. It's not something anyone wants to do when they're tired and they're fatigued. But hey, this is how you recover. This is how you get better. I'm doing this to hold you accountable for your health, for your longevity, for the betterment of your career. And it's hard because some players are like, man, this guy's dogging on me. And it's like, no. We're trying to make you better. We're aligned. Your success is my success. As you stay in the game, you don't get hurt, all these things. Coaches are trying to give their athletes the best opportunity to succeed, the best opportunity. There are tons of data points that we're talking in. I'm looking at 4. I'm looking at physical, I'm looking at mental, emotional, and I'm looking at moral. right? I'm looking at all those conditions. And we have data points on the physical. Is he fatigued? Mickey just brought a great data point. He was just running the bases. He's tired. He just scored a winning run in an intense moment. He got a hit. He, He went first to third. Like, these guys are not used to doing that. So I'm taxing him in a way that he's not getting used to. So I've got to take that physical data point. Love that he's got this mental data point. His dad's a coach, by the way. Now coaches a college up in the Pacific Northwest. His dad is like he wants to play. He's an ultra competitor. We want that as coaches, Mickey, right? We want these guys to go, give me the ball. I want the ball. Yeah. I know you want it, man. So the mental is there that he's ready to go. He's physical. But we're also looking at other mental things. How's he reacting to hits? How's he reacting to base on balls when he doesn't get a call from an umpire? How is he factoring emotionally? We saw that last night when you're, the fist pump, and it's like this burst of energy. That's another data point. You're losing energy, man. And if you don't usually do that, the intensity rises in these moments, and it's taxing emotionally. And now you got to look at the moral too. Like, hey, where am I at? Just morally on this thing. Like, am I a person who's always got my ducks in a row? Am I like locked into what needs to do? Or there are always edges of guilt. Oh yeah, I should have went to bed earlier. Oh, I should be eating the right things. Oh, I should have got my workout in, but I was tired. And there's these things of guilt, shame that kind of dive into players that they carry. And that's another weight that they carry. And so when you know these players really well, you have to look at all these data points. And my only argument with Mickey on that is I think there's way more than 50. I think we have tons of data points, including mile per hour, spin rate, all these things we're seeing. And if that's changing, Mickey, you remember the days when we used to go, well, the ball's coming up. He's getting tired. Because that was what we talked about. Right, the ball starts coming up and guys start hammering it because it gets above their waist and everyone's hitting the snot out of the ball. But we have tons more data points right now. So as much as he wants to leave me in, the manager is looking at the best of all those 40 people and all the fans and all the organization. He's responsible for a lot more than just that one individual. So he's got to look at the whole thing objectively as possible and say, what is our best case scenario? I had a great conversation in the 90s with Blackjack McDowell. Blackjack was obviously a great starter, always would go deep into games. And he was like, I don't understand why they're taking me out in the seventh inning. I still got great stuff. I see these players all the time. I know how to get them out. I'm the one who has all the reps in. Why do we go to some guy who they don't think is good enough to be a starter, who may be fresher, right? He's more fresh. He's got a fresh arm. He doesn't have the wear and tear on the miles. But he's like, I know how to do this, and I don't understand why they do it. And so we had these great conversations about like, man, there's a lot of data points to consider. And Mickey making the point of Lugo, like one of the best relievers at that time, like you go with what you know. And it didn't work out in that case. But most of the time, the data points are dead on.
Okay, here. What's dead on? Okay, give me some quick observations on Molitor and then talk about your book and what you have. And then we'll be dead on. We'll bring on Candy Ebling for a station break. We're going to wrap this show up with Molitor as well. We're rolling great time frame for the amount of stuff that we have on here. We want to make sure that everybody on this panel gets an opportunity about everything, and we'll wait on our playoff observations. All right, real quickly. Okay, quick thoughts on Paul Molitor, and then promote what you have, Trent. And then
I mean, obviously, I grew up in the Paul Molitor era. Like this is the time, in 1987 when he had his 300th hit. I was literally 17 years old, right? I was playing in a high school state championship right before that. Man, watching Paul Molitor hit was something that, I was creating, modeling after his style of hitting, right? Because short, quick swing, super, super great to watch. Humble guy, like always the team guy first. Just a lot to admire about Paul Molitor. In addition to the fact, like no one had been near the streak, right? Of how many games in a row. And he got up to 39, I think, or 37 games, So he was a modern day just kind of hero to a hitter. And also as a small guy, I really admired him because I wasn't a home run hitter, right? I'm always hitting for gaps and getting on base and making things happen. And this is not a guy who was, hitting 25 home runs a year. He'd pop one out every once in a while, but, down the line, 6 feet over the wall, right? And very similar, right? I can identify with that. So, for me, special player and probably the one downside of Paul Molitor, probably got a little bit more exposure in Toronto because they had some really good teams in his Toronto era. But like in Milwaukee, he was a world beater, and Milwaukee didn't always have great teams. They had a couple good years where he got noticed. But because Milwaukee's not that big sound, and even Toronto north of the border, he never. I don't remember him being that household name that he probably deserved in his era, not playing in one of the big markets.
Okay, finally, you.
Oh, me. Hey, I'm Trent Clark. I'm the CEO of Leadership. I am a serial entrepreneur who helps organizations grow. I help develop championship teams, and I've been unfortunately a part of one with Mickey Callaway back in 2002 with the world champion Angels, and then we built tons of businesses that have been very successful. Super champions, 2x to 10x their size. I'm a growth guy. I wrote this book with Wiley, Leading Winning Teams. My podcast is Winners Find a Way. That's the only people I spend around. I only spend my time with people who understand winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. And guys like this group right here, this is why I spend time with them, because they're winners and they do it all the time.
And guess what? You're a winner as well. We'll get to see you 10:30 a.m. on Saturdays here on Talking Baseball. With that said, the man with the rings we could get him in on everything we did. 10 minutes a little past the time, but I don't think 10 minutes is going to hurt anything too much. We're keeping the show pretty much within the target that we have set. Trent, great stuff. We'll see you next Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern
Great to
time.
see everybody. Playoff baseball
you,
doesn't get better. Playoff baseball doesn't get better.
All right. We'll talk about it next week. All right. As we bring Candy Ebling on here to take Trent Clark's place, okay, we'll continue the narrative. Before we do that, Candy, we got a station break that's probably a little overdue, but I want to make sure everybody got a piece of the action on all the topics. Go ahead, Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com.
Great stuff. Once again, I'm going to say it as much as I have to. Talking baseball, moving to 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'm doing this because I believe that Mickey Callaway, who is my actual co-host on this show, will have more resources. We'll be able to get more people on here. I have a lot of them too. Eric Katz and Candy Ebling and Trent, they're team players. I believe the show will have more efficiency with what Mickey and I have. And again, I want to emphasize this very much. Talking baseball, myself and Mickey Callaway. Mickey is my co-host. Eric Katz is certainly part of the team. And at some point, I'm going to release a show on Talking Baseball where Eric will be able to have his own podcast. We're trying to build him up to that. And Eric does a great job on this network. I've seen a kid develop more. Never seen a guy develop as much as Eric Katz is. You talk about an MVP in terms of my system, which is definitely old school. This kid is definitely a superstar. And my goal is to get him in an MLB press box, whether it's spring training or regular season. I'm determined, as long as I can do it, to get this kid where he needs to go. So Mickey is my co-host on Talking Baseball, and I love the rest of the team that we have assembled with Katsy and Clark and Candy Ebling comes on a lot. With that said, one more topic that we can get to that I don't have to feel stressed about, because it's one that Katsy and Mickey and Candy can relate to as well. We're talking about greatness. The narrative is Paul Molitor. Paul Molitor collected his 3,000th hit on October 24th, 1987. He collected his 3,000th hit, I believe in 1996, September 16th, 1996. And he also has extended his hitting streak to 39 games. Nevertheless, has a 39-game hitting streak, and he has 3,000 hits. Pretty good club, Mick.
Yeah, absolutely right. He was as Trent was talking about, he had that short, quick swing. He wasn't over swinging, trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. He valued hits. He valued team baseball. He valued being, a team contributor. And that led to 3,000 hits. It led to streaks of 39 games, getting on with hits. I mean, that's just amazing. And I think when, and I've always told my players this, when you approach the game from a non-selfish standpoint, your numbers themselves will always be better. if you're out there as a player just chasing numbers and not worried about how the team's doing, you're only worried about your own personal numbers, your numbers seem to not do as well as they would otherwise, because you're not playing the game the right way. And Paul Molitor always played the game the right way, played for the team, played to win, and it led to 3,000 hits. It led to a Hall of Fame career, and that's what you admire about Paul Molitor. It wasn't, a guy that you tuned in every night and like, oh my gosh, wait, it was the conglomeration of his whole career put together that made Paul special, and that's a great testament to who Paul Molitor is and why he was a great coach and manager. I got to coach and manage against him, and I thought he was great from across the field.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So I'll give you a minute to elaborate as we get ready to wrap up the show. We've got 5 to 7 minutes left on the show. Great show, by the way. I love the flow of the show that we make, focus on 3 topics, and we're trying to build. So what was it like to play chess with a guy like Paul Molitor? You know how good he was as a player. And let me also preface this. He's one of those rare birds where you can be a great player and a great manager. Mickey, the floor is yours.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, right? I think a lot of times it's like these guys are just so good at whatever their craft was that it's hard to teach it. It came so natural to them. But I think in Paul Molitor's case, he had the ability, he was a very intelligent guy. He's very reserved, especially in the dugout when you're managing or coaching against him. He really seemed to have a great rapport with the players. Obviously, there's that instant, oh, he's a Hall of Famer. I'm sure the players were like, oh my gosh, I'm playing for Paul Molitor to a degree. And he had that instant just credibility that comes with being in the Hall of Fame. And then he was very, very stoic and he approached the game in a very calm way. So his dugouts on the other side didn't seem to be chaotic. Everybody was kind of relaxed, and he did a great job of managing the X's and the O's. You knew once you were going to go up against Paul Molitor that there was going to be the right buttons pushed. And, I really admired that about him and the way he, controlled his clubhouse, and he always had respectful players, and they played the game hard and played the game the right way. Okay,
Cansey.
I mean, Paul Molitor he's very, very Pete Rose-like, always available, plays hard. I remember him more as a manager though, because I probably maybe saw him like later in his career as a player. As a manager, he had some success in Minnesota. Obviously, that was a dream come true for him because he's from Minnesota. And, Paul Molitor is like, he is who he is for a reason. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's very deserving of it. And, he managed to win the World Series with the Toronto Blue Jays the first year he signed there, and actually was a big part of that World Series team, as he had a career year that season. And it's all he's an all around, especially during the 80s when you're playing with guys like Pete Rose at that point. I'd put him up there with Rose.
Okay. I think he's freezing up a little bit. Eric, did you get it all out?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, Candy. Look, before I turn over to Candy, though, I know she's got a million facts anyways, but I'll put a couple out there, and then she can put the visual up as well. That doesn't matter, Candy. It is what it is. Speaking of Paul Molitor, the igniter of the Hall of Famer, Paul Molitor, will throw out the first pitch for tonight's Game 5 against the Chicago Cubs, nationally televised game. I believe it's on TBS, if I understand correctly. Yeah. But nevertheless, he brings 3,000 hits, a 300-plus batting average, and 500 stolen base. Definitely a good choice for the Brewers. Candy, you can take over the narrative. I know you're a research person, but so am I. Okay, but go ahead. I think you can put your heart more into this topic than you need to put facts into it because you lived it.
I did. So what I wanted to say is you have talked and previously on previous shows have talked about Ty Cobb, Ichiro Suzuki. The other 2 names I want to add, Honus Wagner and Eddie Collins, along with Paul Molitor. They are the 5 players in Major League history with at least 3,000 hits, 300 lifetime batting average, and 500 stolen bases. One of the couple of other things that Molitor has had 56 4-hit games, did you realize we've all talked about his hitting, and he is a great hitter? Do you also know that he has a rare feat of stealing home plate at least 10 times?
Wow.
So 500 stolen bases, but 10 of those were stealing home. Now, that's not something you see very often. Yes. Trent kind of talked a little bit about it. I mean, I grew up a Milwaukee Brewer fan. I grew up 20 minutes from the ballpark. Loved seeing Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, that Jimmy Gantner, that whole team. Was it disappointing that they lost the 82 World Series? Yes. And recently Paul Molitor did a interview with a local Milwaukee sportscaster, and he said that was one of his biggest regrets, is that they didn't win the 82 World Series. Now, Paul Molitor was the igniter. He was quick. Yes, his bat speed was incredible. And he said he learned to bat. It was, what you do is the shortest distance between 2 points. So as quickly as you could get your bat to the ball, that was what he did. He at times, Ted Williams compared him to Joe DiMaggio.
Really?
As a batter. Yes. In fact, he said a lot of times when he watched him, he thought there's Joe. He was one of the complete batters. He went into the Hall of Fame on his first time. On his first year of eligibility with 85.2% of the vote. He was so fun to watch. When the batting lineup, going to the games back in the day, and when they would announce Paul the Igniter Molitor is up to bat, and Cecil Cooper and Sixto Loscano, and all these great players, it was just exciting. And Milwaukee, yes, is a small market. So I often wonder if he had the career, because let's face it, he did a lot of it. His career was DHing, and the DH. So to get in the Hall of Fame back then as primarily a DHer at the time was pretty impressive. But I oftentimes wonder if he was in a bigger market, if he had been in New York or the LAs and had this would he be more of a known player like Ichiro Suzuki or them, but
hey, Candy, let me interrupt you. Okay. This is your moment where you get a really, seriously, really, and I'll tell you why. The guy predominantly played in Milwaukee, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. How much, with 85, you already bit yourself in the back with those 85% facts. How much more notoriety can you get? Really, seriously, really, Candy? Come on.
I'm talking about not from a baseball perspective. I'm talking about as a household name. I'm talking about your average fan. Do they really think of Paul Molitor? Or yes, the baseball writers know and put him in. But I'm saying as more of a well-known name, like they were talking about earlier. I think Trent even said it. Had he been in a different market, he might have been a more well-known name, like your Aaron Judges, your Ty Cobbs and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying, Scott. Yes,
he's a well-known player, Candy. Get real. That's all I'm going to tell you, Candy. Hey, you know how I feel about you. That goes beyond 9 million generations of people. I've never seen a woman with more sports intellect in my entire life than you. That's why you're on a lot of these shows. That's why you're a fledgling superstar as a female on this network, because I've never seen a woman in my life know more about this girl. I've never. She's a superstar that nobody knows about. But come on, Katie. Paul Molitor is a household name, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. And you know what? That's why we do these shows to make sure if they don't know about him. As I'm going to go ahead and sing. If you don't know me by now, you never will. And that's not designed for a Memorex. And I'm not calling out American.
Well, here's the thing about Molitor too. I mean, it's some guys don't want to play in the big market. It's just not for them. It is not easy. As great and as much notoriety as as more notoriety, I'd say, that you'll get playing in big markets. Sometimes it's just not for guys. Ichiro played in for the majority of his career. He played in Seattle. So, he didn't come to a bigger markets until late in his career. He played in Seattle, which isn't exactly the largest market, which I'd probably put them more in the middle of the road, kind of up there with St. Louis in terms of market size. So Ichiro didn't play in the biggest of markets either. But we have to keep in mind too that the internet wasn't what it was at the time. So Paul Molitor wasn't getting the notoriety that Ichiro played, because I think Seattle and Minnesota. Actually, I'm going to just go with Seattle, Toronto, and Minnesota, because those are two places. I'm just going to compare those places. They're practically the same market size, and the internet wasn't what it is now. It's not like you could. Ichiro played when you could Google him, and that's how people got to know him and players and things like that. Granted, it's not what it is now, but still, there was hardly the internet back then. So as far as there's a lot of players at that point in time who really didn't get their due because the internet isn't what it is now.
Well, that's true. Let me add one thing as we get ready to wrap up the program. Ryan Braun would have sunk in a major media market. He's lucky he played in Milwaukee. And the internet and Google is a great point, Eric. Great. I'm glad you brought that up. So that's because of Mickey Callaway, and we brought up Ty Cobb. There's a new feature I'm going to bring on every Monday to go along with Ichiro. And this was definitely thought about you, Mickey. Everything I put in these shows, Mickey Callaway's name is involved in every of my wild mind decisions. Okay, and here's that. We talk about Ichiro, Suzuki, and Nolan Ryan. Now I'm going to give you a Ty Cobb nugget of the night on Monday nights. All because of Mickey Callaway keep bringing this guy up. How do you like that, Mick?
I love it.
The blueprint of this network is set around my manager, Mickey Callaway. And I got Ty Cobb every week. You guys got to learn something about Ty. We got Ichiro, Suzuki, and Nolan Ryan. If you don't have Hall of Famers on the phone with our Hall of Fame cast, then I am delusional. And I don't know if I am or not. I got Florida Atlantic against UAB tonight as well. And, of course, the Michigan Wolverines will be taking on USC tonight, which I haven't recorded and all that. But great show tonight. Mickey, before we wrap up this program, the floor is yours. Let's talk about what you're doing with your lesson. And a great show. Any comments about what we saw with the new format, Mickey, of how we really narrowed it down, even though there was a lot to bite off? Because I'm looking every Saturday morning with the time change to improve the format. Anything we can do better?
No, I loved it. I loved it today. I love that we really talked a lot about Shohei, who's the best thing going in baseball right now. And, we get these exciting playoffs, and we get to talk about some of that throughout the show. So that's really fun. But, if anybody wants lessons, I'm starting to do virtual lessons as well. Reach out to me. You see my email just under my name there, mcallaway2433@gmail.com. I'll be glad to take a look at your son's or your daughter's mechanics and kind of give them a little piece of advice or two. I'm passionate about the mechanics of pitching, and I think I can really help somebody out at some point. So just shoot me an email, and we can arrange something, or we can get together in person. And, I'd love to help your child become a Major League Baseball player at some point.
Yeah. And Mickey Callaway, by the way, his email address is underneath his name. So it's mcallaway, Callaway 2433@gmail.com.
Yep. That's it.
I like the last two numbers. I like the last two numbers, by the way, 33, which happens to be my lucky number. You better go ahead and contact this guy. But that's the way to get a hold of him. Mickey and I, we're partners in crime on these baseball shows. And I talk about one of the best additions I've added on this network. Mickey Callaway is one of them, but a lot of it had to do with my New York Mets. And he took my bombs every time I went up to spring training. Now I have my own manager who can take them all the time. And I'll tell you one thing about Mickey as we get ready to wrap up this program. He's come a long way, but I'm not done with Mickey Callaway by any means. My goal is to coach him up, not only on his social media, but give him as much exposure as I can to make sure that he becomes a household name in broadcasting. And Mickey has done a good job so far, but don't let that get to your head, brother. We have a lot more work ahead of us.
Scott. I appreciate it.
We have a lot more work to get along here. We have two shows, 108 Century Baseball Talk on Monday night around 8:45. And, of course, now our new time, 10:30 a.m., on Saturday. Hope you can join us. Enjoy the crowd we have in. Looking forward to the way this show builds up momentum during the course of the weekend. On Monday, to give you a preview, a lot of us are going to talk about what's going on in baseball up to this point in the playoffs. And we'll do a lot of our off-season activity in a couple of weeks as we talk about managerial things. We want to stay on point and then more specialized on Saturdays as well. Great job by Trent Clark. Enjoyed having him on. Mickey, you obviously being my co-host. This is our show, and we're just glad to have Trent, Candy, and Eric as our co-hosts as well. But Mickey, you and I, we're going to make out of this show what we want to make out of it. And obviously, I appreciate your dedication to what we're doing here on Talking Baseball. All right, so you know where you stand with me on that. With that said, Candy, one more station break. Everybody can talk about where they get hold of, and we'll wrap it up. All right, go ahead, Candy, one last station break. Once again, new time change, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday morning. Hope you could join us.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how it has evolved, old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us, and then turn on your notifications so you're notified anytime we go live. If you want to advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
Great work, Candy. This woman is unbelievable. She is a superstar in terms of women, in my opinion. One thing I like about South Florida Tribune Media Network is we try to build our own stars here. And let me tell you, Candy has come a long way. Not only as a photographer, but the fact that she built our website, South Florida Tribune, from scratch. You talk about a woman who is dedicated to what we do in addition to her day job. You talk about an MVP on this network. You don't get much bigger and more giant than Candy. I'm proud of everything she does. I want everybody around the whole world to realize she's our superstar on the network. Candy, everybody should give you a round of applause because you are the backbone of what we do. Garrett, go ahead and let everybody know they get a hold of you. And Mickey, you can go out there and promote. If you want to put a phone number out there, fine. The email is up to you. That's your call. I'm going to give you one last talk about the lessons. I'm proud of you, Mickey. We have a lot more to do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Eric.
You can follow me on my X account at Sports Team News, or check out my blog at bellyupsports.com where I'm writing about all things baseball. If you think I don't like your team, I probably don't.
Well, the only thing I'll say about myself, I'm only as good as the people I have on me on my team, and that's it. I don't have to say anymore. The book speaks for itself. All right, Mickey, one last closing thought.
Yeah, like I said, if your child or your adult child wants a lesson or just to talk about mechanics and try to improve in any way, just shoot me an email and we'll set something up. I'd love to do it virtually or I'd love to do it in person. So I'll be here for whatever your child needs, and let's make them a better player.
All right, well, that does it for us in Talking Baseball. Hope you enjoy the college football. Candy and I will be over at UAB and FAU later on. Enjoy your college, but I'm glad that you're able to start off your morning with here Talking Baseball. Let's face it, the MLB postseason is what it is, and going away for a couple of weeks, and we'll have our Final Four pretty much all set up. In fact, I believe the respective championship series begin tomorrow night, and now you have the Toronto Blue Jays set to take on the Seattle Mariners. It'll be another thing that we talk about Monday night. So on behalf of Trent Clark, Mickey Callaway, Eric Katz, Candy Ebling, my name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate all the comments in the chat room as well. And we look forward to building on this in the coming weeks. A new starting time, I'm convinced, will certainly help aid the cause. We appreciate those of you that have joined us on the earlier time slot. We're only looking to make it even better. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, but Monday, 8:45 Eastern Time, 108 Inches Baseball Talk. Hope you can join us there too. Have a great weekend.